Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the music performance series of Wild Wednesdays here at the Bowman Museum, sponsored by the Bowman Museum and the Crook County Public Library. I'm Sandy Miller, Director of the Bowman Museum of Crook County. Every other Wednesday here at the museum, and alternating with people from our past, our patrons will get to enjoy lunchtime music from talented local artists featuring a wide variety of styles of instrumentation. Today we have with us an extraordinary gentleman who I have gotten to know very well since I've been here. He's a great musician, playing many different instruments, and he's also a scholar of the history of music as it relates to American popular culture. Today he is offering a program called What the Heck is Folklore Anyway? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Walt Bolton.
Thank you. I told one of the characteristics of folklore is most people, well, I'm going to be working on the definition the entire 45 minutes. But one of the characteristics of folklore is that it is the product it's an unself-conscious, spontaneous product of the culture of the people. It's not necessarily something that's done by scholars or people who are trained in poetry or literature. And it was first, the term folklore first was used in about 1845 by a British scholar, and to get away from the old term, which was popular antiquities, which kind of goes, and so that notion of popular antiquities kind of gives the idea that a lot of people still have about folklore, is that it's somehow quaint, when in actuality it can since it's the product of the people, and often the people can be coarse, the language can be coarse, and the subject matter can be obscene, and it just, because if you're talking about a group of loggers in the real context, the language may be a little different than the language that they would use in company after church. Does that make sense? So what I've always been fascinated with was that language and the stories that are actually from the people. And thank you very much. So I got on to Sandy the first thing, because there's a term, it's called Bowdlerizing, B-O-W, Bowdlerizing. And it comes from a fellow named William Bowdler, who in 1818 took all of Shakespeare's canon, all of Shakespeare's plays, and went through them and rewrote them so they were fitting for women and children. And if you're familiar with Shakespeare, there wouldn't be much left. But it's that idea of sanitizing things. And so the first thing Sandy did was sanitize the title that I suggested for this. And you can guess which word he changed. What the heck is folklore anyway? And it wasn't heck. So, it's the I have gobs of notes here. It's the unself-conscious creative product of people. It's not just folk songs or poetry, but it's any folk product. And it might be folk art. It might be quilting. It might be medicine, folk medicine. It might be oral history. It might be folk tale. It might be legend. You see? All of those things. And a lot of people think, oh, it's antiquities. It's what people used to do. Well, growing up here in Prineville, I remember all of the legends about the house up Mackay Creek that was haunted. Okay? And it's a legend. A legend is a story that is told and believed as being true. And so it's not much difference from a legend that comes out in a political conflict, attributing one political candidate to a pedophile ring in the basement of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. It's a story that is told and believed as being true. Doesn't mean that it is true. In fact, I even was curious enough to go to that pizza parlor in Washington, D.C., where our son lives, and it doesn't even have a basement. But that is the way the human brain works. We make things that fit our worldview. Does that make sense? So I've always been fascinated with it. I've always been fascinated with these stories and with the songs. Now, in my case, both my parents were traditional singers. And my dad was from Oklahoma, and he would sing to me. And he would say, he'd say, well, okay, son, you sing this. And I would sing back and forth, back and forth. So that was my first conscious connection with this tradition of folklore. So that's what I'm going to use today to kind of give you an idea of what this dynamic is, okay? And I'm not a musician. I'm a singer. And when I learned to sing with my dad, we were in the front seat of the 52 Ford pickup driving down to the ranch. It didn't have a radio. So it had nothing to do with a guitar. It had to do with the words and the lyrics and the stories that were being shared. Pardon me?
Sandy said you were a musician. Sandy said you were a musician.
I know, but...
And I agree.
Oh, God. You're taking the definition very loosely. I can't read music. I did not even know what the names of the strings on a guitar were until I started building guitars. So,
We built that one.
that's another story. Oh, don't you remember a long time ago of two little babes whose names I don't know, got stolen away on a bright summer's day, got lost in the woods, so I heard someone say. And when it was night, so sad was their plight, the sun gave no light. The sun it went down, and the moon gave no light, and the two little babes so bitterly cried, and the two little babes they laid down and died. And when they were dead, the robin so red took strawberry leaves and over them spread, and sang this song the whole night long, two babes in the woods, two babes in the woods. Anybody? No. This is anybody ever hear that before? No one. No one. I'm amazed. That is the most widely sung English ballad in history. It was the first evidence of it, and the first recordings, probably in a broadside form, where they would take these, and it was a long poem. It had 30-some verses in its original form, and it was first identified in 1590. The actual event happened to be an unscrupulous uncle who kidnapped the two children, took them into the forest, and killed them because he wanted the inheritance. Okay? So what we're left with are 3 verses of that song. I learned that when I probably couldn't even walk, because my mother sang that to me as a lullaby. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Yeah.
At what point did she tell you that, how old the song was?
Oh, she didn't.
Or the content
No, that's the academic scholarship.
Well, did you tell her then when you found out?
No, it's not important.
Oh, okay. Oh, I knew your mother.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm just saying that's the academia. That's the part of it that fascinates me as a scholar.
Yeah.
But you know, here we have a song that was originated on an actual event that happened in the 16th century. And it's still being sung, probably more so in rural areas than it is in our more modern areas where people now have television and things like that. Because you guys have to understand, I grew up without television. We did not have a television in my home. We had to do other things. And we didn't have cell phones, that's for dang sure. Okay? So I want that. I gave you a bunch of notes, and one sheet just has some things up at the top, and it mentions the things that we use to try to identify or to figure out whether something is folklore or not. And the first is traditional mode of transmission. So oral transmission, okay? It's not a tape recording. It's by word of mouth. Okay. The other is variation through time and space. So in other words, the song or the story or the item, the commodity, has to change through time and space because it's adaptable. If I sing it and you're from a different culture and you sing it, you may sing it differently. Or you may add little things that are different. Does that make sense? So it's dynamic. This stuff is alive. And the third, folk group. The item has to exist within a folk group. And it can be a cultural folk group, it can be a religious folk group, an ethnic folk group. Anything that people, and you can belong to numerous different folk groups at the same time. You might be in a religious folk group and then in an occupational folk group at the same time. Do you see? Because we're these very dynamic creatures that we have, okay? So, On Springfield Mountain there did dwell a handsome youth, I knowed him well, Colonel Merrick's only son, a handsome youth, but 21. This handsome youth one day did go down in the meadow for to mow. He had not mowed half round the field when an ugly serpent bit his heel. And then it goes on. And it tells, the events of him being taken home, and they try to save his life by sucking the juice out of his heel. Well, does anybody recognize the tune? Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. What is it?
I'm just trying to sit there and sing the words of something about your reload, and then it goes back up again.
Ba 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 bum. It's old 100. When I was a kid going to church, it was number 100 in the hymnal. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Well, it makes perfect sense. On Springfield Mountain, during Puritan times, any event that happened was providential. It was a message from God. It was God's providence. So here in Puritan New England, Puritan, Massachusetts, Springfield, we have this young man going out to mow the hay and he gets bitten. Well, it's a message from God. So they make up the ballad about, to the tune of Old 100. Okay? On Springfield Mountain there did dwell a handsome youth, I knowed him well. Ray three today, Ray toonie new. Go ahead. Three today, Ray toonie new. This is a more common version that we hear. This handsome youth one day did go down in the meadow for to mow. Ray three today, ray toonie noo, ray three today, ray toonie noo. He had not mowed half round the field when an ugly serpent bit his heel. Ray three today, ray toonie noo, ray three today, ray toonie noo. They took him home to Molly dear, which made her feel so very queer. Ray three today, ray toonie noo, ray three today, ray toonie noo. Now Molly had two ruby lips, with which the pizen she did sip. Ray three today, ray toonie noo, ray three today, ray toonie noo. Now Molly had a rotten tooth, and so the pizen killed them both. Uh-huh.
What is the title of that first song that you did about the children?
Babes in the Woods. Two babes. Oh, yeah. It's commonly just referred to as two babes in the woods. Oh, and let me go back to that. How many of you have ever heard the expression, as innocent as two babes in the woods, or as innocent as babes in the woods? That's where it comes from. That's where that expression comes from.
Well, the expression comes first or the song comes first?
Oh, no, the song came in 1590.
Well, I know. Possibly a event, and somebody said that to somebody, and then somebody made a song up out of it.
I wouldn't speculate on that, because the event had to do with two children being kidnapped and murdered.
But, you know,
Yeah, no,
you know,
that's fun. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
like I said, just like you said, it's all this building of all these different.
Sure, sure.
Started a new rumor.
So I would speculate that that's the same song. On a rattlesnake Meewah mountain I did dwell when I heard a stee-wah story. I'm a-gonna tee-wah tell, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. A nice young Meewah man in the month of May went down to the Feewah field for to mow his a-hee-wah-hey, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. He had not mow woed half round the Feewah field when a rattlecopper snee-wah wake come bid him on the hee-wah-heel, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. He jumped up a hee-wah high and he he jumped up a hee-wah high and he looked all a-ree-rah round and he closed his ee-wah eye and he fell to the gee-wah ground, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. He said, little bee-wah bird, go tell my see-wah Sal, I'm a rattlesnake bee-wah bit and I need my see-wah Sal, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. The bird did flee-wah fly and spread the knee-wah news, and here comes see-wah Sally without her shoe-wah shoes, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. Oh, Johnny dear, why did you go? Why go into the Feewah field, a hay for to mow? Why won't come a roo-die-roo-die-roo? Well, Sally dear, I thought you know I knowed when the hay gets a ripe, it's got to be mow. Why won't come a roo-die-roo-die-roo? Oh, Johnny dear, I'll save your lee-why life if I may be your sweet little wee-why wife, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. She grabbed his lee-why leg and made him squee-why squeal and sucked that pizen blood all out of his hee-why heel, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. So come all young me-why men and a warning tee-why take, don't ever get be-why bit by a rattlecopper's knee-why wake, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo. When a rattlesnake bee-why bites, it hurts like a knee-why knife. When a woman bee-why bites, you're bit for the rest of your life, come a roo-die-roo-die-roo.
What language was that?
Texas. That's referred to as the Texan version or the stutterer song. But it's the same song, isn't it? Yeah. So in 1969, when I was a student at the university in Folklore, I would come back over here on weekends and to see the sun. And I worked on the oral history of logging in the Chutes River Basin. And one of the connections I made was with a fellow named Orlo Flock up in Pal Butte. And I had heard Orlo sing with his daughter at a street dance at rodeo time. And so I called him up and made contact and went out, and I spent hours and hours and hours. He was a traditional singer and a traditional fiddler. His ancestry was Scottish, and his family, he knew, he was wonderful. He was an incredible source of folk music. All of these things he had learned from his grandmother. So I'd been working with Orlo for a number of sessions and taping him, and And one day he was sitting there, and he just leaned out over his guitar. Didn't say a word. On Brownsville Mountain, there did dwell a handsome youth. I knowed him well. Come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. This handsome youth one day did go down in the meadow, Fordamo, hey, come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. He had not mowed half round the field when a rattlesnake come and bit him on the heel. Come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. Oh, Johnny laid up on the ground, closed up his eyes, and he looked all around. Come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. Oh, Johnny dear, why did you go down in the meadow? Fordamo, hey, come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. Oh, Sally dear, I thought you knowed 'twas a pappy's hay and it had to be mowed. Come a fighty ink a dink, come a fighty ink a diety oh. Oh, Johnny laid up on the bed in a half an hour he went dead. And I had it on tape. And ladies and gentlemen, my name is now enshrined in several very obscure footnotes as the person who collected that version of Springfield Mountain. So that's what we're dealing with. That's what fascinates me so much with this. Okay? Now, so we've talked about mode of transmission. We've talked about dynamic variation. So we have this one version, and it's gone through all of these changes, okay? And so the third thing that we use as a criteria is folk group. And in our area, when I grew up, it was logging and cowboying, and cattle, logging and cattle. And probably, and so just to touch bases, to show you how this kind of works, how many of you are familiar with Paul Bunyan? Oh, I get everybody. No, yeah, okay. Well, Paul Bunyan is not folklore. Sorry. Paul Bunyan was a conscious creation of a fellow named James Stevens, who was, let me see, I have it written down exactly what his title was. He was the public relations director for the Western Lumbermen's Association in Seattle. And he had been around logging, and so, but he sat down and he wrote these stories up about this fictitious character named Paul Bunyan. And if you're familiar with the original story, he was a Canadian. And he got really frustrated with the restrictions that the Canadians were putting on logging. And so he had a dream one night, and in the dream he saw printed in stars, it said, "Free enterprise." So he jumped across the Canadian border into the United States and he started cutting down the trees in the North Woods. And so he was a fictitious creation. He was a conscious creation, okay? It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not folklore. Does that make sense? So James Stevens also wrote a song. As I sat down one evening in a timber town cafe, a 40-year-old waitress to me these words did say, "Now I see that you are a logger, and you ain't just some common bum, 'cause nobody but a logger stirs his coffee with his thumb." Well, my lover, he was a logger. Now there ain't none like him today, for if you'd pour whiskey on it, he'd eat a bale of hay. And he never shaved his whiskers from off'n his horny hide. He'd just drive them in with a hammer, and he'd bite them off inside. Well, my lover, he came to see me. 'Twas on one freezing day. He held me in a fond embrace which broke 3 vertebrae. And he kissed me when we parted, so hard that he broke my jaw. And I could not speak to tell him he forgot his mackinaw. Well, the weather it tried to freeze. No, the last time I seen my lover, he was sauntering out through the snow, going gaily homeward at 48 below. Well, the weather it tried to freeze him, tried its level best. At 100 degrees below zero, he buttoned up his vest. Well, it froze clean down to China, and it froze to the stars up above. At 1,000 degrees below zero, it froze my logger love. And so I lost my lover, and to this cafe I come, and here I wait till someone stirs his coffee with his thumb. That's the James Stevens version. It's all sanitized, right? Just like a logger would really sing. Well, it didn't take long for a sequel to come out. And you have a copy of a different sequel from Charlie Adams. Charlie Adams was in our class, and he's a retired attorney up in Portland, and he and I were chatting online one day, and he said, well, did you ever hear this version? And he sent me his version. But it's not the version I sing. Oh, yes, my dear, I'm a logger, and I am lonesome too, for I once had a sweetheart, and she much resembled you. We was working out of Missoula, logging the country round, and my love, she worked in a small cafe a few miles out of town. Well, she was a delicate hasher, a hasher beyond compare. With a dainty flick of her tiny wrist, she flattened a grizzly bear. Well, she had many fine points about her, and I remember yet how she let me use her flaming lips to light my cigarette. Well, one night we went on a party. We went with a sawmill crew, and we all had a drink of whiskey, and my love had a quart or two. Well, you know how it is when you're drinking, and that whiskey within you burns. So my love, she challenged a buzzsaw, and she spotted it 7 turns. Now she was easily winning, when by some trick of fate, she slipped and lost her footing, and was sawed into 4 by 8s. And so I lost my true love, and that mill owner, as a joke, sawed all that was left of her carcass, and he sold it for seasoned oak. And so I lost my true love, and I come to this small cafe, and now that we've met each other, our nuptials we must say. We'll stand on top of a mountain, and we'll sing to the stars above, and at 40 degrees below zero, we'll consummate our love. Well, there's one more. Now, that's not the end of my story. There's only one thing more. We wanted a great big family. We've had children by the score. Well, the first year we had 9 children, and the next year 79. For when we found we could do it, we had them 10 at a time. Oh, she was a mighty fine mother. She nursed them one by one. On the one side she gave straight whiskey, on the other side she gave rum. So now when we're all together, we count them one by one, and we count our blessings together, and stir our coffee with our thumb. Now, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Now, which version do you prefer? Now, if you notice, the sequel, it's a little more colorful, one might say.
And yours is more polished than Charlie's.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
but I've sung it twice. But you can see, it's the same, you can see Charlie's version, and it's the same song, it's just a different version.
Right.
Yeah. That's the dynamic thing about this stuff. It's alive, man. It's good stuff. It's fun. So where are we? So loggers, all right? The other tradition that I grew up with was the cattle tradition. Now here's my observation, and this is just purely me. We have a much greater song and poetry tradition in the cowboy culture and in the cowboy folk group than we do in the logging folk group. And to me, it seems obvious. If you're sitting on the back of a horse and you're 17 or 18 years old in a cattle drive in 1888 from Texas up to Kansas, and you're in that saddle for 12 or more hours a day, following a herd of cattle, your mind tends to wander. And there is more time for reflection and contemplation. If you're working in the woods and there's a loose choker on the ground, you better not be reminiscing or thinking about something else. You'd better be focused on what's going on. So any of you who have ridden horseback or driven a tractor around a field for hours and hours, you know where your mind goes. And it's amazing, the poetry that your mind will create when you're not wanting it to. And it's very different from the work that exists in the woods, okay? So, and often these songs, like I said, the tradition began with the great cattle drives, the Chisholm Trail and the Goodnight Loving Trail from Texas up to the railheads. And lots of wonderful, wonderful songs came out that continue to be sung about that experience. Okay. I get talking. We was camped on the plains at the head of the Cimarron. Along come a stranger and he stopped to argue some. Oh, dressed so awful foolish and he looked so awful round. We guessed he was a greenhorn that just escaped from town. We asked if he'd had his breakfast and he hadn't had a smear. So he opened up the chuck box and we bade him take a share. Some coffee and some biscuits with some bacon and some beans. And then he started talking about them foreign kings and queens. All about the Spanish War and their fighting on the seas. With shells as big as steers, boys, ramrods big as trees. And about old Paul Jones, that fighting son of a gun. He was the meanest cuss that ever pulled a gun. Such educated feller, well, his thoughts just come in herds, confusing all us cowhands with them jaw-breaking words. Oh, he kept right on a-talking till he made us boys all sick, so we began to look around to find some kind of trick. Well, he said he lost his job down on the 70, and he was headed out west across the Santa Fe. Well, he didn't say what happened, had some trouble with his boss, but asked if he might borrow a nice fat saddle horse. Well, this tickled all us boys to death. We laughed up our sleeves, said we'll give you a fine horse, round and fat as you please. So Shorty grabbed a saddle and he roped old Zebra Dun, and all the cowboys gathered around a-waiting for the fun. The Zebra Dun, he was an outlaw, he growed so awful wild. Why, he could kick the moon, boys, he could jump a mile. But old Dunny stood right still, just as if he didn't know, till Shorty got him saddled and ready for to go. When the stranger touched the saddle, old Dunny quit the earth. He traveled right straight up high for all that he was worth. just a bucking and a bawling and a having wall-eyed fits, with his hind feet in the stirrups and his front feet in the bits. You could see the tops of mountains under Dunny at every jump, but the stranger, he was glued there just like his camel's hump. Well, the stranger sat upon him and he twirled his black mustache, just like a summer boarder a-waiting for his hash. Then he thumped him on his shoulders and he spurred him when he whirled, a-learning poor old Dunny who's the boss of this here world. And when he had dismounted once more upon the ground, we knowed he was a buckaroo and not some dude from town. Well, the boss had been a-standing there a-watching of the show. He walked up to the stranger and he asked him not to go. Said, if you can throw the lasso like your rhodo zebra done, why, you're the man I've been looking for since the year '01. Well, he could throw the last rope and he didn't do it slow, and he could catch them 4 feet 10 times in a row. When the cattle lay stampeded, he was always on the spot and set 'em back to milling like the simmering of a pot. Well, it's one thing, it's sure thing that I've learned since I've been born. Every educated feller ain't a plumb greenhorn. Now you're beginning to hear things, because if you're familiar with that folk group, with cowboying, you begin to hear terminology that is particular to that group. You know, thumped him on the shoulder and spurred him when he whirled. And now if you're in Scotland, you're not going to know what the hell they're talking about, you know. But that's the thing about the folklore, is that it uses the language of the group. That was first, and this is just trivia, it means nothing. That was first recognized or recorded or written down by a fellow named Jack Thorpe in 1890. It was either 1890 or 1895. So that was right at the end of that period of those great cattle drives. Fascinating stuff. And it's still being sung by some of us. So it's May. What is it? May 11th, in fact. It's May. And May is an interesting time of the year. I look out and I see that tree and I see the blossoms budding on that tree. And I look out the window in the morning and I see the quail in the yard in pairs. Okay? One morning in May, I spied a fair couple a-making their way. The one was a lady and a fair one was she. The other was a cowboy and a brave one was he. Said, where are you going, my pretty fair maid? Just down by the river, down by the shade. Just down by the river, just down by the spring. See the wild rippling water, hear the nightingale sing. Well, they had not been there but an hour or so, till he drew from his satchel his fiddle and bow, and he tuned up his fiddle all on its one string, and played this tune over and over again. Oh, says the cowboy, I should have been gone. No, no, said the pretty maid, just play one more song. I'd rather hear your fiddle just played on one string, as to see the waters gliding, hear the nightingale sing. Oh cowboy, won't you marry me? No, no, pretty maiden, that never can be. I've a ranch and a family with babies 3. One cow ranch and a family is enough life for me. So I'll go back to Montana, I'll stay there 1 year, I'll spend all my money on whiskey and beer. If ever I return, it would be in the spring. See the wild rippling water, hear your nightingale sing. Well, I used to sing that to my students in class when I was teaching poetry, and they would look at me. It would shock them because I would just sing it. And I would say, okay, folks, it's a poem. Don't you get it? You know, these are seniors. And I said, hold it, stop. Let's just step back and let's analyze this. So, what do we have? One morning in May. Well, May. Tell me about May. Come on, you guys. Tell me about May. What happens in May? The birds are birding, the bees are being, and the trees are bedding. Okay, so then what? Well, so one morning in May, I spied a fair couple a-making their way. One was a lady, and a fair one was she. The other was a cowboy, and a brave one was he. All these blank stares. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got a young man and a young woman, and walking together in May, when the birds are birding and the bees are being, and it's a cowboy. And you guys are sitting here in my classroom, and you don't know anything about cowboys? And they go, and they began to get a little more interested. Said, where are you going, my pretty fair maid? Just down by the river, just down by the shade, just down by the river, just bound by the spring, which is the source of life. See the wild rippling waters, hear the nightingales sing. And I would say, ladies and gentlemen, when do nightingales sing? They had not been there but an hour or so, till he drew from his satchel his fiddle and bow, and he tuned up his fiddle all on its one string, and played this tune over and over again. Come on! And they would be looking at me blankly, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, have you never heard the expression fiddling around? Bam! It was as if I'd hit them with a 2-by-4. And they were right into it. They were right into looking for metaphors, looking for similarities, looking for the cleverness of language that we use to say things when we don't want people to know what we're saying, because it's really fun. Okay. Am I going to run out of time? Well, it was in, let me see, that's in the wrong key. Well, it was in the month of May, when lambs do sport and heifers play, and tiny birds do sing a charm. I met a fair young maid. The sun shone on her golden hair, her cheeks 'twere high and rosy fair, and when she spoke most tenderly, 'twas like a morn in spring. Says I to she, now would you mind if I would tag along with thee, perhaps to help you bind your hair, or tread the flowery stream? Oh no, kind sir, that cannot be, for you're a stranger unto me. My mistress bids I will not bide, nor cast the idle gaze. But oh, the day was sweet and warm, and there was pleasure in her form. To idle was my moment's ease, to rest my heart's desires. So I gently took her by the hand, to wander softly across the land, to pluck a rose to bind her hair, to tread the flowery stream. Then round her neck I wove a chain of daisies round and back again, and in that bower of lace entwined we wove the golden skein. It's loaded. It's wonderful. It's loaded stuff. Good poetry. Good poetry. Yeah. And yeah. Well, heck, what do we got? You want more?
Do you know the water story? Moose Turd Pie.
The Plina Crew. I heard this first told to me and sung to me as a story song about Wild River, Maine, the logging crew in Wild River, Maine. And the story was that the foreman of the logging crew wouldn't have anybody on his crew. His name was Jigger Jones. He wouldn't allow anybody on his crew who wasn't tough enough to kick the knots off of frozen hemlock logs with his bare feet. Well, at the time, I happened to be a BLM fire foreman at the Plina guard station, and we had a foreman out there named Kyle Jones. The Plina crew is a rough old crew, and I'll tell you the reason why. We live on brew and cat liver stew and a daily piece of moose turd pie. Well, old Kyle Jones, he got pretty tired of doing all of our cooking. So he says, if I hear one more guy bitch for a new cook, you'll be a-lookin'. So Jones was out in the woods next day, chasing up a big deer herd, and coming back to camp without any luck, he slipped upon some fresh moose turd. So he scooped him up in his old game bag. The grin on his face was sly. He thought the boys would surely bitch if he fixed 'em up some moose turd pie. Well, the Plina crew is a rough old crew, and I tell you the reason why. We live on brew and cat liver stew and a daily piece of moose turd pie. Well, the boys come in for supper that night, their appetites 'twas high. They chewed their way through a 10-course meal, and they started in on the moose turd pie. Well, one by one the boys turned green, their eyeballs rolled to and fro, and one feller hollered as he sank to the floor, "Good God, that's moose turd pie!" It's good though. What's that?
We leave some time for questions.
Oh, sure. If do you have questions?
I do. So the classic characters that we learned in grade school, like say Johnny Appleseed and John Henry, do they fit the criteria?
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed was spreading seeds around he was an itinerant seed salesman.
So that fits the definition of folklore?
Oh, sure, but not the version that you get in the third grade textbook. Because his name was John Chapman, and he was a real character. But he was an itinerant seed salesman, and he had quite a reputation.
But I guess
John Henry was an actual character, yeah. And if you listen to the real versions of John Henry, not the version that's in your third grade textbook, John Henry had a little woman. Her name was Polly Ann. Now, John Henry had a little woman. And anyway, they said, well, who's going to shoe your little foot? And who's going to glove your hand? And who's going to kiss them red ruby lips after your steel driving man? It may mean more than just hitting something with a hammer. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's metaphorical. And all of these folk groups, especially when you start dealing with men in dangerous environments and dangerous work, they become really macho, and their machismo is not only, but it also is their sexual prowess that, my God, so it's interesting.
Speaking of characters that actually exist, what about some of the folk tales involving monsters, like, Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or something?
In every culture, there tend to be stories about a human-like, a biped, all over the world. And I would class it as legend. A legend is a story that is told and believed as being true. So it doesn't mean that it is true. It means that it's told and believed as being true. So if it's talking about Sasquatch or Yeti or any of those.
There are Wingarry legends.
Pardon me?
They're ongoing legends. I mean, the thing that always fascinated me about Bigfoot is that he's still around. Like, how many centuries did he find the key to eternal life or something?
Well, that, like I said, folklore isn't, there's no timeline on folklore. It's happening right now. You know, conspiracy theories, and you start looking at these conspiracy theories, and they often, you know, they have characteristics of legends from, you know, a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. You know, it's the human mind is fascinating with what it wants to do with its world, with its reality, and trying to put order on something that really isn't. You know, there's. Yeah.
Then somebody writes a poem about it.
Sure.
Then somebody turns it into a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever happened to Kyle Jones?
He went on to teach chemistry in Madras, and I don't know where Kyle is. I don't know. He was a year ahead of me in school, so that would make him a year older than I.
Remembering from the station, probably from the BLM.
Pardon me? So I have no idea. He left. By the time I got out of the service and came back, I took over the Paulina crew, so he was no longer there. So, but. Oh, let me do a different one. This is, where did it go? As I was out walking one morning for pleasure, to hear the birds sing and the nightingales play, 'twas there I did spy a fair pretty maiden as she was a-walking along the highway. Said, where are you going, my fair pretty lady? Where are you going so early this morn? Said, I'm going to town for to visit my neighbors. I'm going to Warwick, the place I was born. I said, may I go with you, my fair pretty lady? May I come along in your sweet company? She turned herself round and smiling all at me, saying, you may come with me, kind sir, if you please. We had not been walking but a few miles together before this young damsel began to show free. She sat herself down, saying, sit down beside me, and the game we shall play will be 1, 2, and 3. I said, my fair lady, I'm fond of the gaming. There's one game I know that I'd like you to learn. The game it is called the game of all fours. So I took out my pack and began the first turn. Well, she cut the deck and I fell a-dealing. I dealt her the ace and myself the poor jack. She played out her ace and took my jack from me, saying, Jack is the card I like best in your hand. Since I dealt the last hand, it's my turn to shuffle and my turn to show the best card in the pack. Once again she had the ace and the deuce 4 to beat me. Once again I had lost when I laid down poor Jack. So I picked up my hat and I bid her good morning. I said, you're the best that I know at this game. She answered, young man, if you come back tomorrow, we can play this game over and over and over and over again. You want?
What woods are in your guitar?
What wood?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all scrap wood. Okay? The top. This top is made out of a 6x6 redwood fence post. You can see the 666. And it happened to be curly redwood. The sides and the back. This is fiddleback western maple, a board that I had up in my rafters, and I looked up and said, oh, that's pretty neat. But it wasn't wide enough to do the back, so I put a keystone of black walnut in the center. The neck is curly maple with a black walnut down the center, and then and I tell people, if you use this in fancy dancy wood and it's so, and people go, ooh, ah, they don't see the screw-ups. And I can show you several places where I had to go back. And I always believed that if you can read, you can do damn near anything. And I always figured I could do open heart surgery if they'd just let me go back and correct my mistakes.
Especially with the internet.
Yeah. YouTube. So, yeah, I've made 4. The first one was made out of juniper. The backs and sides are out of a juniper tree that was on our place. And it's a very nice sounding guitar. And then I made one for my niece, our niece, and then I made one for Pat. And
Were you, as you're sanding the wood, were you hearing it vibrate?
oh, when you build the body, and then you hold on to it with the sound hole, and you thump it, and you can hear the resonance. And I'm very curious now about the tops, because the tops are the soundboards. And so I have 2 bodies that are built with different tops. One has, I can't remember. I have to look at them to see. Oh, one of them is redwood like this, and the other is western hemlock. Yeah. And it's real fine grain, pretty wood, yeah. Do you want more songs, or do you want to talk about guitars, or I don't care, or do you want to go home? You're probably... Oh, okay. Can you see past that? Okay. Oh. This is a folk toy. You find them all across the United States. And he's called a lumberjack. Way out to see Miss Cindy, she lives away down south. Oh, she's so sweet, honey bee, swarm around her mouth. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you sometime. Well, Cindy got religion, she shouted all around. She got so full of glory that she shook her girdle down. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you sometime. Well, Cindy had twin babies, 'twas born on Christmas Day. She bashed one in with a bottle of gin, but the little one got away. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Oh, get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you sometime. Pardon me? No. There was a fellow, the Marcola Loom Factory up out of Eugene, and he made them, and he used to come to the Saturday market in downtown Eugene. And so my uncle-in-law and I would show up with our guitars, and we would play these to show people what they could do. And it helped him sell them. So he gave me this one. And yeah.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I've seen them, I've seen the handle come out, and so there are 2 of them, and then people dress them. One is dressed as a man, and the other one is dressed as a woman, and the board is T-shaped, and so they can dance together. But I mean, I've seen people put faces on them and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Any more? I mean, I I used to teach this class, it took 9 weeks, so you guys are only getting 45 minutes.
Thank you, Walt.
You're welcome, you're welcome.